kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Heavenly Father, for all the women in the world who love and nurture and soothe, who educate and instigate, who encourage and embrace, who love deeply, who are courageous and kind, who see hope in the future, who sacrifice their own needs, who care only for what God thinks of them. I pray, give her peace, give her joy, give her love, give her happiness, give her wisdom. Whatever her name, aunt, cousin, friend, daughter, sister, mother. Let her know, dear Lord, that words are insufficient to convey the wonder of who they are, and the love, respect, and appreciation we have for them. Lord, we thank you for all the precious women in our lives. May they always be blessed, stay safe under your watchful eye, and protected by your gracious hand. In Jesus' holy name I pray. Amen.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 2022 celebration of the International Women's Day. So once again, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the celebration of the 2022 International Women's Day. I am Mary Beth Chua, the Project Development Officer 2, supervising the ASEAN CMEO PQF portfolio under the International Cooperation Office.
And I am Ryan Ray de la Serna Limos, Technical Assistant 2 of the BHROD Employee Welfare Division, and we will be your host for this ceremony.
Every year, International Women's Day is celebrated on March 8th to spread the message of gender equality and work together in making a better society where there is no gender bias. It is an annual celebration to commemorate the cultural, political, and socio-economic achievements of women. It aims to recognize the contributions and achievements of women in championing gender equality, reproductive rights, and countering violence and abuse against women and girls. This momentous day sets to raise awareness and address the concerns on relevant issues on a gender transformative approach. Thus, the resounding contributions of women in all spheres should be integrated into all facets of human interaction.
On the other hand, the United Nations theme for the observance of the 2022 International Women's Day, or the IYD, is Gender Equality Today for a Sustainable Tomorrow. The theme recognizes the contribution of women and girls around the world who are leading the on climate change adaptation, mitigation, and response to build a more sustainable future for all. This is also in line or aligned with the priority theme for the upcoming 66th Commission on the Status of Women, or the CSW 66, achieving gender equality and the empowerment of women, of all women and girls in the context of climate change, environmental and disaster risk reduction policies and programs.
Through this event, we commemorate the International Women's Day by giving them a platform. Today, of course, to speak and discuss the endless contributions of women on women empowerment, gender equality, and the critical role and leadership of women during this pandemic across the country.
And now, to officially start the program, let us all hear the opening remarks from the Secretary of the Department of Education, Her Excellency Leonor Magtoles Briones.
To Miss Sarah Debs, Officer in charge of the UN Women Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific, to Dr. Wang Yan, Education Network Coordinator of APEC, Miss Renee Graham of the APEC Ministry for Women, New Zealand, Miss Sima Samay Bahur, Executive Director of UN Women, Attorney Anne Rachel Miguel, Director 4 of the Bureau of Human Resources and Organizational Development, distinguished guests, active listeners on this important and memorable commemoration of International Women's Day. A pleasant morning to each and every one of you. Today, we sit down, reflect, discuss, and debate on the status of women at this time and the expectations of the increased and accelerated roles that we expect women to play today for a sustainable tomorrow, especially as we are winding down our activities, our fight, our struggle against the COVID pandemic. In many countries of the world, we hear horror stories of the deprivations, of the suffering, and the struggles of women to regain, to attain more rights, to practice more meaningful participation in the events of our countries as we move on to greater and much more exciting heights, whether it be in education or in other fields. We hear of their sacrifices. We hear of what they underwent in order to afford more women the very rights that we now take for granted. The case of the Philippines, as we all know, is a mixed story, a combination of both traditional roles of women vis-a-vis traditional roles of women which were brought over by the waves of conquerors who occupied our country and sought to impose their culture and their way of interpreting the role of women in society. In the Philippines, as we all know, and there is very clear evidence to this, the traditional role of women has not been that of a slave or of a bearer of children alone. We had women heads of tribes, of clans. We had women healers. medicine people, we had warriors, and of course, we had great mothers. And so we have this mixed and very interesting conglomeration of various practices, of various perspectives on what the role of women should be. When I talk with women in the Philippines, with their careers, their sense of freedom, of equality with men, and the freedom to do and to achieve and to reach the heights which they have set for themselves as both personal as well as national goals, then I cannot help but remember that there was also a period in Philippine history when women led their peoples, their tribes, and their societies along with the men on equal and sometimes even more equal status. So I would suggest that as we take on the various roles of women at present, as we debate on how women can further increase the roles and their contributions to different types of societies, to different levels of development in countries all over the world. We also remember the good news. Women were not always the inferior side, the inferior, if pitiful, gender. Women also led, women also ruled, women also healed, and most important of all, of course, women were mothers and were nurturers. They were likewise religious leaders. So let us not only reflect on the bad news and the challenges that we still face at present. Let us reflect on earlier societies where women had always played an equal, if not at times more equal role than men themselves. For each story of victory in traditional societies, for each advancement in science, in child rearing, in statehood, in statecraft, in home building, there has always been a woman. And I'm so delighted whenever I talk with many young Filipinas, young Filipino women who are already enjoying and getting back and practicing these traditional roles with nary an objection, of course, from the men and those with different thoughts, because it has always been so before the conquerors came and before they finally departed. So today, let us reflect on our increasing victories and our struggles against the COVID pandemic. You cannot imagine how many women are out there as frontliners, as doctors, as nurses, as hospital staff, as teachers, as also home house mothers themselves, taking care of the sick as well as of the healthy. These things we take for granted right now in modern Philippine society. But we still have areas where the cultures imposed upon us by foreign perspectives still linger and remain. We think about women in other countries who do not enjoy the same degree of independence and freedom which we Filipinos enjoy together with men. And so today is not only a day of remembrance, of all the struggles, of all the sufferings, of all the rights which have been won bit by bit, one by one in other countries. Let us also remember what women have always been: co-leaders, co-parents, co-warriors, co-healers, and most of all, equal members of our society. Thank you very much, and once more, welcome to this wonderful and great day of celebration.
Very much, Secretary Briones. Indeed, that was such a very informative and inspiring opening remarks. As you know, we had a brief, like we were able to remember bits of our history about how women used to be co-equals, or if not, of maybe in a way higher status than men. So I hope we all remember what women has always been. Okay, so we have to remember the good news that we were not always inferior, because in every victory, advancement, and so on, women were always there. Women have always been there. So now, to proceed with our program, we were able to invite different personalities who will give their messages of support and celebrate with us for this year's International Women's Day celebration. So first, let us hear a message from the United Nations Secretary General, Mr. Antonio Guterres.
On International Women's Day, we celebrate women and girls everywhere. We celebrate their contributions to ending the COVID-19 pandemic. Their ideas, innovations, and activism that are changing our world for the better, and their leadership across all walks of life. But we also recognize that in too many areas, the clock on women's rights is moving backwards. The pandemic has kept girls and women out of schools and workplaces. They face rising poverty and rising violence. They do the vast majority of the world's unpaid but essential care work. They are targets of violence and abuse just because of their gender. In all countries, women are scandalously underrepresented in the halls of power and the boardrooms of business. And as this year theme reminds us, they bear the brunt of climate change and environmental degradation. Starting now on International Women's Day, it's time to turn the clock forward for every woman and girl, through guaranteeing quality education for every girl so they can build the lives they want and help make the world a better place for us all, through massive investments in women's training and decent work, through effective action to end gender-based violence, through bold action to protect our planet, through universal care that is fully integrated into social protection systems, and through targeted measures like gender quotas so we can all benefit from women's ideas, experience, and leadership everywhere decisions are made. Gender inequality is essentially a question of power in a male-dominated world and a male-dominated culture, and power relations must be reversed. So, at United Nations, we have achieved gender parity in senior management at headquarters and around the world, improving our work and better representing the communities we serve. We need more women, environment ministers, business leaders, and presidents and prime ministers. They can push countries to address the climate crisis, develop green jobs, and build a more just and sustainable world. We cannot emerge from the pandemic with the clock spinning backwards on gender equality. We need to turn the clock forward on women's rights. The time is now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Guterres. For our next speaker, let us welcome Assistant Director General for Education, Ms. Stefania Giannini.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, happy International Women's Day. Since the onset of the COVID pandemic, UNESCO has been at the forefront of efforts to understand the gender dimensions of school closures. And the impact of the pandemic on education has been global, in a way never seen before in previous epidemics, emergencies, or crises. It's still affecting the Philippines, despite swift action by the government and its partners to ensure continuity of learning. School closures impact not only learning, but heighten students' risks of hunger and exposure to gender-based violence. Evidence is mounting of a veritable mental health crisis among children and adolescents. All these has consequences, unfortunately. Consequences for the future and for entire generation. When schools shut, our global study exposing the gender impact of school closures reminds us that the path to equality is not a straight line. What does it mean? It finds that increased household demands and the gender digital divide constrained girls' ability to learn online, particularly in poor contexts. Now it's the time to build back equal. We need disaggregated data to understand who is learning while schools are shut, who is going back to class when schools open, and who is not. We need participatory approaches that listen to children's and young people's perspectives and ensure action to address the needs that they voice. We need actually bridges between governments, teachers, school administrators, families, communities, and learners, of course, especially learners to prevent harm and safeguard rights. We need women's leadership in responding to COVID-19 and in many other sectors and preparing for a more equitable recovery. To build back equal, we must include and support women and their organizations and networks in the decision-making processes that will shape our post-pandemic future. And we must ensure that gender equality is at the center of sustainable recovery. Through our global education coalition that counts now around 200 partners, we convene actions to address gender gaps in education and build back equal. UNESCO will continue to work hand in hand with governments, civil society, the international community to galvanize action and support the creation of resilient, gender-responsive education systems that leave no girl and no boy behind. This is what transformation is about. This is the transformation we need to build a better future. On this and every International Women's Day, we stand behind those advancing women's rights and empowerment in the classroom and beyond. As we say at UNESCO, her education is our future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Giannini, all the way from UNESCO Paris. At this point, let us all hear from the Executive Director of APEC Secretariat, Dr. Rebecca Fatima Santamaria.
Leona Briones, Excellencies, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for this kind invitation to join you as we celebrate International Women's Day this year. I must congratulate the APEC Education Network and the Department of Education Philippines through the International Cooperation Office for organizing this online event. I look forward to the eventual launch, and I know there was a lot of work done here. I look forward to the eventual launch of the Faces of Education Leaders amidst to COVID-19. I appreciate the challenge of putting together the collection of stories of the remarkable education leaders in the APEC economies, transcending the demands of COVID-19, and this is not just commendable, it is necessary for posterity and for sharing stories to inspire us. I believe in the power of education and the educator. I am from the Portuguese settlement, a small fishing village in Malacca, Malaysia. I grew up speaking hardly any English or the Malay language, Bahasa Malaysia. I spoke the local dialect, which was a mix of Malay, Hokkien, and Portuguese. I learned English and Bahasa Malaysia in school. To a large extent, I owe it to the nuns at the Sacred Heart Convent in Malacca, where I went to school. That's why I am passionate about education, and I have enormous respect for educators. In my interactions with my staff and every opportunity I get, I tell parents that if you give nothing else to your children, give them a good education. Education has the power to change lives. And we all know how the pandemic has affected each of our education systems, how we have had to quickly adapt to online teaching and learning. This compilation of stories, and I do hope it comes true, I really look forward to it. I hope this compilation of stories will provide us the opportunity to give voice to those who are seldom heard. I'm really pleased that Secretary Briones and her team are doing this. One of the notable achievements of APEC is its contribution to the increasingly more frequent policy discussions about women's economic empowerment, which have over the years driven home the fact that it is the right thing to do, the smart thing to do, because inclusive economies benefit everyone. You may know that at APEC, we have the APEC Women and the Economy Dashboard prepared by the APEC Policy Unit every 2 years to monitor the status of women's economic integration in the region. We track developments in 5 key areas: access to capital and assets, access to markets, skills, capacity building and health, leadership, voice and agency, innovation and technology. It tells us where we are succeeding, such as in the access to markets, and where we could do better, such as in leadership, voice and agency, where it is obvious that we still have a long way to go. And we heard this morning. This is especially so in ensuring that women have equal voice and voting power as men in the political arena. The dashboard tells us, for example, that the average percentage of seats in parliament in APEC in 2020 held by women was only 23.9% and 19.1% in ministerial positions. These figures reflect the wide disparity in women's representation. And this is important because representation equals voice and conscientization. Those of us in positions of influence must be the voice of those who struggle to be heard or whose stories may seem just too ordinary. We must articulate and bring to the surface what we know in our hearts and minds. We must be actively engaged to ensure policy changes that would enable women to function more effectively. So I look forward to that collection of stories because it is important. It is an important complement to our efforts to provide an avenue for the voices, our voice. Oh, was I muted? Sorry. Yeah, let me just go back to what I was saying. So I look forward, as I said, to the collection of stories that you are putting together because it is an important complement to our efforts to provide an avenue for our voices, the voices of unsung heroines to be heard and shared as significant learning points for educators and policymakers, as well as encouragement for all involved in the teaching profession. In advancing women's empowerment remains an important part of APEC's goal of achieving inclusive and sustainable growth across the Asia Pacific. The role of educators in this field must be given right of place. So congratulations again, and thank you very much for this opportunity to share in this celebration. A very blessed International Women's Day to all.
Thank you very much, Dr. Santa Maria. Let me call on our next guest, the chairperson of the Philippine Commission on Women, Dr. Sandra Montano.
I would like to share Zainab Salvi's perspective about women when she said, and I quote, "We need to invest in peace and women, not only because..."
Greetings of gender equality and women's empowerment. This March, the Philippine Commission on Women enjoins everyone to join us in honoring all Juanas as we celebrate the 2022 National Women's Month. This year's celebration is special with a recurring theme, We Make Change Work for Women. In its culminating year, and with observance timely set, months before the national and local elections. This year is an opportunity to highlight the gains achieved for women and girls, and at the same time, assess our efforts towards gender equality and ask, have we made change work for women? It is time to examine how we enabled women to benefit from and participate in nation building, how we laid down functional mechanisms and services for Juanas, and how we pursued gender equality through compassionate and harmonized actions and networks. This year, as we look back at what we already achieved, we also look forward to what remains to be done. It is timely and relevant as the country continues to reel from the COVID-19 pandemic. Studies and data show that the health crisis stalled movements towards gender parity, with the situation worsening inequalities, further exposing gender gaps and exacerbating vulnerabilities in social, political, and economic aspects. We saw women in the informal economy losing their jobs, Juanas becoming victims of violence while locked down with perpetrators, women bearing an increased burden of unpaid care work, and other manifestations of inequalities. Hence, in our celebration this year, the PCW calls on government agencies and stakeholders to be proactive in preventing backsliding from what we have achieved in gender equality and women's empowerment. Through substantive discussions, let us assess the gender gaps that are still existing and develop ways to close the same. In line with the sub-theme, Agenda ng Kababaihan, Tungo sa Kaunlaran, we highlight that by addressing women's concerns and issues, sustainable development can be achieved. We want to enable more women to demand programs and services that can empower them to meaningfully contribute to the country's progress. Since its election year, the PCW also continues to push for gender equality and women's empowerment in leadership, governance, and public service, so Juanas can craft and implement gender-responsive programs. Through the Pulso para sa Kababaihan, Tungo sa Kaunlaran online poll, we can gauge what Juanas and Juans deem as priority issues that need immediate attention and solutions that we can call on leaders to include this in the government agenda. Significant issues include climate change and disaster risk reduction and mitigation, also the focus of this year's International Women's Day. This urges us to understand the impact of climate change and disasters on Juanas and recognize their roles in addressing this, consistent with Section 10 of the Magna Carta of Women. As we observe the National Women's Month, let us honor Juanas by promoting their welfare and ensuring their participation in all aspects of development. We encourage you to use all possible tools and platforms in celebrating Juanas, from music through the Musika ng Kababaihan Fridays, hashtag Purple Tuesdays, hashtag Purple Your Icons, profile pictures, stickers, GAD forum and agenda setting, online advocacy, and other pertinent ways. We call on the government agencies, private institutions, civil society organizations, academe, local government units, from provinces to barangay, and every person to help address the continuing and emerging issues that hamper women's empowerment. We must work in solidarity towards the closure of the gender gap that to date no country has yet to achieve, even the Philippines. According to the Global Gender Gap Report, the country closed 78.4% of its overall gender gap to date and ranked 70th out of 156 countries in the report. It is the only Asian country in the top 20 tier, followed by Lao PDR. We all have a role to play. Juanas, stand up for your rights, break barriers, be pioneers of change and empower other Juanas and make sure that discrimination is eradicated. Juans, you can help by challenging stereotypes and the traditional macho culture. Encourage more Juans to practice positive instead of toxic masculinity. To members of the LGBTQIA+ community, you are propellers and key movers of this advocacy towards gender equality. To government agencies and private institutions and all organizations, your gender-responsive programs, activities, and projects serve as the foundation of achieving inclusive development. The Philippine Commission on Women thanks all our partners in this advocacy as we encourage everyone to continue building on the gains attained and reaching strides towards gender equality. Lastly, to all Juanas, this celebration is a reminder that you are strong, magnificent, beautiful in all ways, exemplary, diligent, brilliant, compassionate and passionate, innovative, resilient, and powerful, for being pillars, trailblazers, and change makers in the family, community, and country. We honor and celebrate you. Muli, maraming salamat. Let us continue making change work for women.
Thank you very much, Dr. Montano. For our next guest, she is a professor at St. John Fisher College, Rochester, at New York, USA. Please help me welcome Dr. Sharon Del Mendo.
Magandang umaga sa inyong lahat. I can't. Sorry about that.
I think you're muted.
Good morning, everyone. I am grateful to the earlier speakers to call out on both the problems and the progress that women have made in the past several years. I'd like to talk about something much more down to earth, quite literally, and that is community gardens. The majority of people who work on community gardens are women, and especially because of COVID, forcing so many people out of work, food insecurity and actual starvation conditions became much more of a worldwide problem, and certainly in the Philippines. And community gardens are a way for people to raise crops to feed their families, both in urban and suburban as well as rural areas. So I sent several articles to DepEd, and one of them is a compilation of articles on community gardens in the Philippines, and not all in Metro Manila. So this is definitely something that is catching on, and it is a wonderful means of empowerment and caretaking for your families. There are two other things that I'd like to mention very briefly, because I think they're particularly suited to the Philippines, and I hope somebody will think about developing these projects. The first is industrial hemp. Hemp used to be a major crop in the Philippines. It grows well there. It's carbon negative, so it sequesters carbon when it grows. All pieces of the plant are edible, and the fiber can be used for handmade paper, building materials, clothing, and if it were farmed on a large scale, it would serve as a carbon sink, which is very important to find ways to sequester carbon, especially in the Philippines where you are more vulnerable to climate-caused catastrophes like the typhoons that have done so much damage there. And the other thing that I'd like to mention, I hope somebody will think about it a little more, are biogas digesters. You can build them yourself. You can build them for a single family or for a school or a parish or a barangay or whatever. And you can compost virtually any organic material, including human waste. And biogas digester converts organic matter to methane with a byproduct of liquid fertilizer. And the methane can be used for cooking, for heating water, or on a large scale for producing electricity. So these are two things that I think could be developed in the Philippines with great results. And I would just like to salute all the women out there who are working in community gardens and feeding their families at a time when food insecurity and general anxiety and economic hardship have just been so devastating for almost all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Del Mendo. Next, the Commissioner of the National Commission on Indigenous People, Ms. Jennifer L. Sibuglas.
I would like to share Zainab Salvi's perspective about women when she said, and I quote, "We need to invest in peace and women, not only because it is the right thing for all of us to build sustainable and lasting peace today, but it is for the future." To our friends from the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation Network, our agency partner, the Department of Education, through the International Cooperation Office, my fellow Indigenous peoples, women around the world, and our viewers today, mapiansalam kaniyalangon, a pleasant morning to all of you. Today, we are celebrating the International Women's Day, a celebration to honor and recognize each and every woman for her great contribution, especially given to her family, her community, and to the entire nation as a whole. To her family, the source of her strength and resilience, safeguarding her children, provision of basic needs, and displaying love to all members are her paramount considerations for her sacrifices. As a mother, she can be a farmer who will plant trees, corns, and vegetables, and manage the plowing of animals to prepare the land for planting. But most especially, she plants inspiration and love. To her community, especially for Indigenous peoples, she is one of the links as culture bearers that connects the past generations to the future, relentlessly transmitting intergenerationally Indigenous knowledge and traditional cultural expressions that uplift the dignity and identity of the IP where she belongs. The assertion of harmony, and wisdom, even justice, radiate in her participation in political structures or councils, where her presence is highly valued. The quest for genuine recognition and the fulfillment of the right to self-determination of the Indigenous peoples. To the nation, the beauty she exudes and the cultural heritage she holds dear bring honor and pride to the country, where these talents and skills have been showcased in other parts of the world and have been highly acclaimed in the international arena, like the ones of Wang Langdulay, Kuya Bing, and many other IP men. Having said all this, it is therefore imperative that we continue to listen to the voices of women give them space to empower themselves alongside with men, and lastly, to grant them more representation, governance, where they have been gifted with extraordinary skills of interfacing mainstream and traditional values that promote long-lasting peace, not just within her community, but with which would resonate the entire nation as well, not only for the present generation, but for the future ones as well. Mabuhay and dakan salamat.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sibuglas. At this point, we have Mr. Roderick Cruz, the President of the United Nations Association of the Philippines.
Peace, peace, peace. We need peace now more than ever. We need peace in this world that we live in, where this harmony amongst men exists. Women has a big role in establishing world peace. Women is the key to world peace. From our moment of conception to our last breath, we are all longing for peace. Peace in ourselves, peace in our community, peace in our country, peace in our world. This year's International Women's Day celebration theme is Gender Equality for Sustainable Tomorrow. We can only achieve a sustainable tomorrow if we have peace. The women's role in peace education is very vital. Humanity have failed because up to this time, we cannot achieve lasting peace. More so that the world peace is threatened by Russian invasion of Ukraine, where people of Ukraine are suffering. We are all suffering. The world is suffering. We are all suffering. Can you feel your suffering? Can you feel it? We are all suffering financially because of the rising inflation and the increase in oil prices every day. We are all affected with the increase of the oil prices. Prices are rising and we cannot afford it because peace is disrupted. 1.5 million refugees in Ukraine are displaced. 31,000 women joining Ukrainian armed forces and are ready to fight and defend their country, which is 22.5% of their armed forces. In the United States, 14.4% of its military are women. In the Philippines, there are 8,000 women in the Philippine military, or 2% of the 140,000 total population of the armed forces of the Philippines. We need more women in our armed forces of the Philippines. The role of women in times of war is very crucial, from defending their country to nursing the sick and the wounded. During the war, taking care of their children and family is the number one priority of women. Their love is a source of security. They provide foods that nourishes our body. They care for all of us. This is the basic role of women in everyday life and is intensified during war. I would like to thank the mother of the Department of Education, Secretary Briones, for the inspiration and for empowering women educators to benefit our students who are the future of our country. I would like to thank Dr. Marge Ballesteros and the Department of Education International Cooperation Office family for continuing educating the public of the importance of the UN days and observances and organizing events for such purpose. In order to solve our problem on peace, I would recommend a thorough review and the creation of curriculum for peace education. A comprehensive peace education is a must that must be taught by teachers in order to instill to our children the importance of peace and not war and its effects to all of us. As we celebrate the 75th founding anniversary of the United Nations Association of the Philippines, let us continue to support and help the United Nations, for we are the people of the United Nations. We are the people of the United Nations, actuating the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. More power to our women. Happy International Women's Day. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Magandang araw po sa inyong lahat.
Thank you very much, Sir Rick. Our next guest speaker, she is the Education and Culture Attaché of the Embassy of the Republic of Indonesia. Everyone, Professor, Dr., Engineer, Aisha Enda Palupi, MPD.
The Honorable Director Margarita Consolation Ballesteros of International Cooperation Office, to all respected attendees and participants of this event 2022 International Women's Day. Happy Women's Day to all the incredible women. Shine on, not just today, but every day. Today, we celebrate every woman on the planet. You bring so much love and beauty into our world just by being in it, and it makes everyone a little bit happier. The sun shines brighter when you smile, ladies, so keep smiling. Happy Women's Day. It's a Woman Day. Feel special and unique on the top of your world. Our work would mean nothing without women. Their courage that exists in perfect harmony with amazing tenderness fills our work every day. Happy Women's Day to our mothers, daughters, and sisters. Women are always the resource of inspirations for the family and society. This day is an amazing opportunity to remind ourselves that fighting for our ladies is a very important thing to do. Support every woman around you and respect everything they do because they deserve it. Women can do anything. From congratulations on International Women's Day. Every life begins with a woman. We tend to forget about that. And this day, let's thank every woman in our life and show them some love. Happy Women's Day.
Thank you very much, Dr. Palupi. For our last guest speaker, let us all hear from Mr. Thawat Sumitmore, Charge d'Affaires of the Royal Thai Embassy.
Excellencies, the Department of Education of the Philippines, United Nations Association of the Philippines, Philippine Commission on Women, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the Department of Education for inviting me to the celebration of the International Women's Day this year. In recent decades, many regions throughout the world have made important progress on gender issues, be it political representation, economic participation, or access to basic and higher education. Countries have recognized the need for gender equality and the freedom and rights that must be guaranteed for everyone. However, despite the progress made, much more needs to be done. Today, women from many parts of the world are still facing an uphill battle for their rights and freedom, and it is an issue which concerns everyone. In this regard, I would like to commend all parties for organizing this event to commemorate the International Women's Day. Also, I commend the Philippines in being the top country in Asia in terms of crossing the gender gap. For Thailand, we have been inspired by the role and achievement of women from all walks of life, as well as the love and respect everyone deserves. Thailand has always viewed gender equality and women's empowerment through the lens of promoting possibilities and unlocking potentials, with the objectives of ensuring equal access to opportunities. Thailand has, amongst other things, established the Women's Development Fund to help increase women entrepreneurs' access to finance. As a result, Thailand's private sector as a whole has expanded and benefited, with currently 44% of all CEOs and managing directors are women. Moreover, in my personal observation, I'm glad that there is the increasing number of women representatives in Thai politics, especially their active roles in the House of Representatives. I'm very happy to see this. Furthermore, as a reflection of our commitment to ensuring respect and equality for all, Thailand also enacted the Gender Equality Act, as well as a number of protective laws and measures to promote women's rights, including the rights of women behind bars, and ensure comprehensive safeguards against all forms of gender-based discrimination. This also aligns with our renewed commitments to enhancing and rehabilitating the lives of female inmates, and thereby truly leaving no one behind. So, while we have worked hard to ensure gender equality, more work needs to be done. Thailand remains committed to achieve this. Ladies and gentlemen, as we look to the future in the common pursuit of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development that leaves no one behind, mobilizing and empowering all stakeholders, especially women, will be truly a game changer and our priority in the near future. To all the mothers, sisters, wives, friends, family members, we are grateful for everything you have done. Let us celebrate the achievements of women around the world today and every day. Thank you very much. ขอบคุณครับ Happy International Women's Day.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sumit Moore. Again, thank you to all our guest speakers who delivered their messages for this year's International Women's Day. For the next part of our program, we shall be hearing from our keynote speaker. Ms. Sarah Nibbs has been working in the Asia-Pacific region for the last 25 years with a range of organizations including UN Women, UNFPA, DFID China, Save the Children Fund, VSO, and the Khmer HIV/AIDS NGO Alliance, or KANA. So her work has focused on gender, violence against women, HIV, youth issues, and sexual and reproductive health and rights. Sarah joined UN Women in 2014. She was initially based at Cambodia Country Office and moved to the UN Women Regional Office for Asia Pacific in June 2020, where she is the Deputy Regional Director. Sarah is from the UK and she studied history at Oxford for her first degree, later taking an MSc in development management, specializing in population and reproductive health at the University of Wales, Swansea. Let us all welcome Ms. Sarah Nibbs, Officer in charge of the UN Women Regional Office for Asia Pacific.
Happy International Women's Day. On behalf of UN Women Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific, I want to thank the APEC Education Network and Department of Education through the International Cooperation Office for inviting me today to present the keynote speech. It is really an honor to celebrate International Women's Day with educators and education leaders. Educators play an instrumental role in shaping our worldview and making the world a better place. Personally, I remember my favorite teachers who made an impact in my life. Teachers who opened my eyes to possibilities and taught me to see things from a different perspective. I especially recall my fierce feminist teachers who taught me to be bold and fearless with my dreams. The role of educators can have a lasting impact on a child's life. Education can change attitudes and behaviors and shift social norms. Education has the ability to expand our minds and challenge us to go outside of our own comfort zones. We need quality education now more than ever. Educate the generations to come on their responsibility to the environment and how their actions can help address climate change. This year's International Women's Day theme, Gender Equality Today for a Sustainable Tomorrow, puts a spotlight on the importance of ensuring women and girls are central in all our efforts to promote positive change to build a sustainable future for all. It is aligned with the theme of the CSW 66th session on achieving gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls in the context of climate change, environmental and disaster risk reduction policies and programs. Building on these two intersecting events, let us revisit our current and future actions to help accelerate achievement of gender equality amidst climate change and natural disasters. Advancing gender equality in the context of the climate crisis and disaster risk reduction is one of the greatest global challenges of the 21st century. The Asia-Pacific region is one of the most disaster-prone regions. And I know that you're all aware that the Philippines is located on the Pacific Ring of Fire and along the Pacific Typhoon Belt. So this means that the country experiences many forms of natural disasters such as typhoons, earthquakes, floods, volcanic eruptions, landslides and fires. And additionally, all of us are trying to cope with the fractures brought by COVID-19. We need to be mindful of the context, situations and needs of the most vulnerable communities, including women and girls, as they face some of the deepest impacts. Women and girls in all their diversity need to be part of the conversation because achieving gender equality will open better pathways to a sustainable future for everyone. Today's event is to celebrate the faces of education leaders amidst COVID-19. The women education leaders who have demonstrated great resilience amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. This pandemic has made clear the amplified risks for many women and girls. It has left them more exposed to climate impacts, while less empowered to drive solutions as they face spiraling gender-based violence and unpaid care and domestic work. Rapid and radical action is needed to shift our collective priorities and green our economies. The COVID-19 recovery should be used to bring about economic transformation, to promote environmental sustainability and gender equality. Climate change is widely understood to be a threat multiplier in its amplification of existing conflict and social tensions. But advancing gender equality has a multiplier effect as well. It strengthens cohesion and security, resulting in positive impacts from the household level to the community, local, national, and global levels. I am very proud of UN Women's Empower Women for Climate Resilient Societies project, where together with UN Environment Programme and with the support of the Swedish International Development Agency, we've developed a Train the Trainers programme, and we had the pleasure to conduct a training last year in the Philippines. The aim of this Women's Leadership Programme development is to strengthen capacities of civil society organisations to mainstream gender in their work related to climate change and disaster risk reduction, and to actively advocate with the government for gender mainstreaming policies, programmes, projects and legislation. Young women and girls have been leading global and national climate movements that have effectively shifted the climate discourse in a matter of years. Despite this, youth representation is lacking in politics globally and largely absent from climate change decision-making. So we must also elevate girls' education, which continues to be overlooked, as a potential solution to climate impacts. For each additional year of schooling girls receive, their country can expect to become more resilient to climate impacts. I believe this is where you, as educators and leaders in education, can play a critical role in shaping the minds of our future generations and advocating for change in the education system to incorporate gender, climate change, and sustainability. Education can come in many different forms. I would like to share this inspiring story of Cherry Atilano. She is the Women's Empowerment Principles, WEPS, Youth Leadership Champion for the Asia Pacific and for the Philippines. The Women's Empowerment Principles, WEPS, are a set of principles offering guidance to businesses on how to promote gender equality and women's empowerment in the workplace, marketplace, and community. Established by the UN Global Compact and UN Women, the WEPs are informed by international labour and human rights standards and are grounded in the recognition that businesses have a stake in and responsibility for gender equality and women's empowerment. Cherry Atilano is the founding farmer, CEO and president of Agria Agricultural Systems International, a for-purpose and inclusive business that is creating the first replicable one-island economy that is zero hunger, zero waste and zero insufficiency through the ecology of dignity approach. Agria aims to help eradicate poverty for farming and fishing families in order to alleviate the effects of climate change and establish food security in the Philippines. Cherry started teaching farmers at the age of 12 years old, and she has 22 years of vast experience in sustainable food systems. What I really love about Cherry's story is the reminder that there is an educator and leader within each of us. It really inspires me to see young women such as Cherry educating and empowering other youth through pragmatic actions to combat climate change, building a more sustainable world. Cherry demonstrates the importance of tackling climate change from all different dimensions, from the private sector to the education sector. We all have a role to play, and we all need each other to make this world gender equal today for a sustainable tomorrow. The stories of young, strong women leaders inspire hope in me. They are also role models of change and educators of our future generations. I want to thank all of you for your continuing commitment to educating and influencing our young minds, our leaders of today, for pushing boundaries, pushing people out of their comfort zone in order to learn and to grow. I'm reminded of a quote by Dr. Susan David, a psychology professor at Harvard. She said that discomfort is the price of admission to a meaningful life. May we all continue these meaningful conversations and pushing boundaries beyond our comfort zones as we celebrate International Women's Day, gender equality today for a sustainable tomorrow. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Neebs. At this juncture, we will now be hearing from our invited resource speakers who will be discussing the role of women and the importance of gender equality. Let me introduce to you our moderator for this part of the event. She is a senior desk officer of the ASEAN CIMEO PQF portfolio under the International Cooperation Office. Please welcome Ms. Hannah Patricia Cortez.
Good morning, everyone. Gising pa ba tayong lahat? Good morning to all the lovely ladies joining us today in the Bulwagan ng Karunungan, and to those who are watching us via the DepEd Philippines and DepEd ICO Facebook pages, good morning. It is an honor to be given the privilege to become the moderator for today's discussion, considering that we are joined by two brilliant women who are our resource speakers for today. Let us keep the ball rolling and begin this discussion. To jumpstart our session, allow me to introduce our first speaker. Our first speaker is the Director 4 of the Bureau of Human Resources and Organizational Development of the Department of Education. Today, she will be discussing the role of women during the pandemic and thriving in a post-pandemic world. Let us all welcome Attorney Ann Rachel C. Miguel. you please try speaking again, Director Miguel?
Nalagay registration form.
Director, you. Director, perhaps it would be better if we remove our earphones and
Morning, Hannah.
there you go. We can.
Do you hear me now?
Yes. We can hear you now. So, Director Miguel, you may now start with your action or your talk.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Director. We can hear you now, Director Miguel. Loud and clear po.
Good morning.
Good morning, Director Miguel. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes,
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now, Director Miguel.
All right. Okay, should I start?
Okay, yes, Director.
All right. First, foremost, uh, let me greet our Secretary Lindo Magtolis Briones, our Undersecretary for Human Resource and Organizational Development, Undersecretary Wilfredo Cabral, our keynote speaker for today, Ms. Sarah Nibs, the officer in charge of UN Women Regional Office for Asia Pacific, Director Marge Ballesteros of the International Cooperation Office and her team, and all the men and women in this virtual platform. Good morning to everyone. Well, I am given a very relevant topic for today, titled The Role of Women During Pandemic and Thriving in a Post-Pandemic World. You see, the COVID-19 pandemic, it's both a threat and an opportunity. It is seen as a threat and also an opportunity. For many women, the COVID-19 has become a threat to their own well-being, as well as the well-being and safety of their children and their family. It is also a threat to their work, as it has greatly affected all economies in the world. It is a threat to the future of their kids, as our education sector embarked on new learning modalities. However, we've seen that it's also an opportunity for learning and leadership. We've seen how women have displayed leadership and resilience in this time of pandemic. In the healthcare sector alone, we have healthcare workers as frontliners in the COVID-19 response, and also our policymakers who displayed decisiveness in critical situations. And in our education sector, we are witnesses on how our mothers, our grandmothers, our guardians, teachers, and school leaders work hand in hand in ensuring learning continuity. Next slide, please. The COVID-19 pandemic, it's not just a health issue. It has a profound effect. No? It is a profound shock to our societies and economies, and women are at the heart of care and response efforts. We've seen women leading our health response as frontliners in our medical facilities, from public and private hospitals, and also in our local government health units. Many of them were exposed, and we've seen that a lot of them contracted the virus. Next slide. Based on gathered statistics, women make up around 70% of the healthcare workforce, both private and public. This exposed them to greater risk of infection. And we cannot discount that their sacrifice is very enormous. Not only exposes them to the risk of contracting the virus, but also to their families. Next slide. In the education sector, in the context of our education frontliners in the Philippines, primary education, teachers make up around 87%, according to a study by the World Bank in 2019. And in the Philippine basic education sector, around 72% of our public school teachers are female. So that's majority of our teaching workforce. Next slide. At the onset of the pandemic, in order to ensure that education of our young will continue, the Philippines Department of Education embarked on a blended learning approach, where learning will be delivered within the confines of the home through various platforms, television and radio, and of course, the online or virtual platform. In this blended learning approach, parents took a very crucial role, and women, who are the ones who usually stay at home, played a vital role in the success of the blended learning modality. And we have been witness to a lot of stories about mothers being able to inspire and motivate their children to love learning by guiding their kids, by providing a conducive learning environment, and by providing feedback to teachers for purposes of monitoring the progress of the learners. Can we go to the next slide, please? The pandemic has also given an opportunity for women to work remotely through different alternative working setup, such as work from home arrangement, giving them more time to oversee their families. However, in working remotely, women are demanded to balance working and parenting at the same time. This contributes to their physical, emotional, and psychological strain to women. It is observed that the pandemic has turned many of our mothers into untrained instructors. While various capacity building measures have been set up to guide our mothers on how to better assist their kids, their larger role in blended learning has forced them to take on a role which they feel they are not adequately equipped with. Next slide. So clearly, women are serving on the front lines during the COVID-19 pandemic. The role of women is very critical in the education and healthcare sector. And they really served as our frontliners during the pandemic. Next slide. Given this, we now have to answer this question: how will women thrive in a post-pandemic world? And we see that education will serve as an essential catalyst for a resilient and better post-pandemic world. Because of the economic and social disruption caused by the pandemic, this highlights the vital role education plays in nurturing the next generation and in fueling innovation and skills needed to combat any future crisis. Women are given the critical role in nurturing the next generation who are holistically developed, possessing 21st century skills, resilient and innovative, and they are given that role to nurture the next generation of healthcare workers, doctors, nurses, scientists, and the next generation of teachers and even mothers needed to fight any pandemic or any crisis. And this leadership that we need is exemplified by no other than our Secretary Briones, together with many female leaders who are there on the front lines addressing the challenges of the pandemic. And to quote what she said, no, it was very challenging, but it's not for us to complain because our country has survived so many challenges, so many crises. Education must continue. Education must never stop. Secretary Bion's leadership was challenged by the pandemic, but she was committed to ensure that education must continue and should continue through the basic education learning continuity plan. The need to transform education, ensure it's fit for the future and relevant to the needs of our young and the economy is indeed critical in this situation. As our secretary stated in one of her speeches, the capacity, the strength, the courage, the fearlessness to accept that change is happening. And we can respond by face-to-face. We can respond by the provision of information and communications technologies. We can respond by other ways of communication. On the last note, in emphasizing that education should be a catalyst in addressing our needs to address this pandemic, like Secretary Briones and all other women who have taken up the call in the fight against the pandemic, let us celebrate and thank them. And also, let's also recognize the men who have supported gender equality and supported the women in ensuring that we will be able to move forward and have a resilient and better post-pandemic world. So to all of you, to all of us here in this virtual platform, again, Happy International Women's Day at mabuhay po tayong lahat.
Thank you very much, Director Miguel. Indeed, we have seen a lot of women proactively participating in a lot of social programs during the COVID-19 pandemic, and some of them were even able to jumpstart good practices such as the community pantries that we have seen last year. And the other achievements that were mentioned during Director Miguel's talk. And when we think about that, the extra mile that women have to go through just to achieve these things, it's an empowering feeling to revel on. And that's why it's not only important that we recognize these achievements, it's also important that we celebrate them, how women continue to thrive and make the most out of their situation in times like this. With that, let us now move on to our next speaker. She has considerable experience in promoting gender equality in the international arena. As delegation lead, she has presented on a number of equality issues facing women, led bilateral discussions, and collaborated with countries to advance intercultural issues. She was endorsed as the chair for APEC Policy Partnership on Women and the Economy for the 2-year period of 2021 to 2022. Let us all welcome Ms. Renee Graham.
Thank you, Hannah. Tēnā koutou katoa e rangatira mā. Greetings from New Zealand. Thank you for the invitation to join you today. Happy International Women's Day. In New Zealand, we also celebrate Suffrage Day in September, which is the day where women in New Zealand fought and gained the right to vote, which was the first in the world. And that was 128 or so years ago. Like to acknowledge the Indigenous women who came before me and to kind of support Secretary Briones's comments about the impacts of she called it Conquerors on Indigenous Women. It's something in New Zealand that we are finding that we want to address as well. But both these days enable us to really think about our past, what we've achieved, our current, what we're doing today, and also the future. I like to support my other speakers. Anne's presentation just beforehand, I'm sure that, like me, a lot of you were nodding and could absolutely understand and agree with her sentiments about the impacts of COVID on women and in education. And something that we support here in both in New Zealand, but also my colleagues from the Pacific Islands, who have said that it's really hard to get young wahine or women back into education after the impacts of pandemic, because they're actually needing to go out and help bring in income for families who were affected by the pandemic. So the theme for this year's International Women's Day is Break the Bias. Bias can be conscious and unconscious, and makes it difficult for women to move ahead in education, employment, and in society. It can be prevalent in our workplaces, communities, schools, homes, and even in ourselves through the way society has conditioned us with traditional gender roles and expectations. I'm very fortunate because I went to an all-girls school and I work in the social sector. And in the social sector, more than 60% of employees are women and managers. So I've been quite fortunate not to have experienced gender bias in the workplace too often. Although because I'm Indigenous, I have faced pressures from that angle. But I've reflected over this statement and this year's theme of bias. What have I done and what am I doing to break the bias? I've been really privileged in my career to use my roles to champion and speak on women's issues and support the work that improves lives of women and girls here in New Zealand and internationally. My prior role for Secretary for Women meant that every day I could get up and go to work thinking, how can I improve lives in New Zealand today? What work can I do and how can I champion that cause? Also, as chair of the Policy Partnership for Women and the Economy, I have the privilege of leading work in APEC on women's economic empowerment across 21 economies. I'm really privileged to be able to work alongside many colleagues from economies who are passionate individuals and really dedicated to making change in the lives of women in our economies. They're really passionate and they share ideas, share experiences and learnings, and by doing so, it enables all of us women in each economy to benefit. And we all stand to gain from that. And some of the work that I've seen we've done is closing the gender pay gap, addressing barriers to women's employment and meaningful participation in the economy, occupational segregation, supporting more women into leadership to inspire the next generation in their communities. We've made commitments through that. In 1995, we signed up for the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action. And in 2019, we signed up for the La Serena Roadmap for Inclusion and Growth. So as you can imagine, we are pretty dedicated in making change. And the work that we do is even more important and pressing given the disparities and vulnerabilities that have been highlighted by the pandemic. We've seen the disproportionate impacts that COVID has had on women and girls across the globe. That's why one of New Zealand's key priorities for APEC in 2021 was to increase inclusion and sustainability for recovery, to enhance the participation of all groups and ensure their contributions are valued. And also why Thailand, as host for 2022, are also placing a strong focus on inclusion and sustainability, with balance being one of their key objectives as we seek to reconnect safely. The pandemic has shown how women who already face more barriers and obstacles than men in the workplace are impacted by economic shocks to a greater degree than our male counterparts. On top of this, women have shouldered the majority of unpaid care work responsibilities, including childcare, which has had an impact on their ability to enter and remain in employment. The fact that women are so much more vulnerable to a crisis such as this shows how crucial it is that women are included and represented in all levels of leadership and decision making. What we can see from the stats is that only a quarter of the world's parliamentary seats are held by women, and that women are heads of state and government in only 21 countries worldwide. A woman involved in rebuilding is important, and I think I first cottoned on to this idea in the Women in Peace and Security work program, who really integrate women as a central part of the decision making and implementing change. But there are some good examples in APEC. You've seen impressive women leading the way, which you just heard from Executive Director Dr. Rebecca Santamaria. In New Zealand, we place an importance on leadership in terms of improving workplace equality in the workplace. In New Zealand, our Prime Minister, Governor General, and Chief Justice are all women. We also implemented an action plan in the public sector workforce to address gender equality and improve the gender pay gap. And that means in the public sector in New Zealand, women now hold over 53% of roles in the top 3 tiers of leadership. And that's an increase by about 4% in the last 2 years, and by 13% in the last 10. And women in New Zealand also hold 50% of positions on public sector boards and committees. And all of that happened by our concerted effort to drive change. And it's a fantastic result. But in the long term, the real value is the example these women leaders set to those following them, by demonstrating to other women that they too can advance their careers to this level. And in the visible and the longer term changes that they are making to break down stereotypes and unseen norms around what a leader looks like and what qualities that we value in a leader. And all of this effort has also resulted in part by policies around flexible work to reduce the gender pay gap in the public service, which is now around 8%. So we are making a lot of progress, and despite the evidence, it's really challenging barriers to overcome, and things that are unseen and incredibly difficult to measure. It's the gender stereotypes, the norms, the biases, and the ingrained in society in all of us that stand in the way. So while we're making a lot of progress, we still have work to do. In PPWE, the Policy Partnership for Women in the Economy, our APEC stream, one of our key tasks has been in monitoring and driving action on the La Serena Roadmap on Women and Inclusive Growth, which was adopted by APEC ministers in 2019. It's an ambitious plan for building and strengthening women's empowerment in our APEC region. It sets out detailed actions against how we can measure our progress towards this objectives. I coordinated the first implementation plan progress last year in 2021, and we pulled together information on all the activities and projects taking place across all of the APEC working groups and streams, which is about 16 or so. And there were over 100 activities in progress at that time, which showed that gender mainstreaming is becoming a significant feature of APEC and an indicator of progress towards equality. What we did find, though, was that while a lot of these activities were focused on areas such as improving access to capital, there was a lot of scope for increasing focus in some other areas of the key La Serena objectives as well. So my recommendation following that report was to encourage working groups to look at undertaking activities in some other key areas which deal with some of the intangible issues like bias, such as addressing harassment in the workplace, addressing gender norms and stereotypes. And that's something I'm hoping to continue to drive forward this year as PPWE chair. These are challenging topics, and no one group or economy can do this work on its own. Achieving meaningful change for women requires effort from across the board, from all parts of society, the APEC structure and region, but everyone can play a part in driving this change. Through our joint efforts, I know that we can make a difference to the lives of women around the globe. We can make the path easier for those who follow and shape the future for generations to come. So thank you, and I wish you all the best on International Women's Day. Let's all break the bias. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.
Thank you very much, Ms. Graham. Listening to you actually made me think about the rich historical, social, and cultural foundation that supports the celebration of International Women's Day. And I like the question that you posed earlier. What can I do to break the bias? I think it's also something that all of us should be thinking on as we move forward. Yesterday, our team reflected on this year's theme, break the bias, and the common responses revolved around the need to allow women to take up space, be seen, be heard, and be allowed to fulfill their destinies or be able to thrive in their chosen path. And I think in the context of New Zealand, the Prime Minister, your Prime Minister herself, Jacinda Ardern, is actually a very good example of breaking the bias. And we will be having a short conversation with our guest speakers. So I have here several questions to the both of you, Director Miguel and Ms. Graham, and you can take turns in answering these questions. So, of course, let's start with the one that is very relevant to DepEd. Let me reiterate, this year's theme is Break the Bias. It's all about dismantling the preconceived social constructs that tend to place women inside a box or viewed under the light of a specific stereotype. Now, what do you think is the role of education in breaking gender stereotypes in the society? Perhaps we can hear first from Director Miguel.
Thank you, Hannah. Well, first of all, let me say that women nowadays are really leading in all sectors. May it be in the education sector, in the health sector. We see a progress in terms of the number of women, also in the government and occupying high positions or third level positions in government. And I think a lot of women now, a lot of girls now are also doing well, excelling in schools. And this is supported by our policies in the education sector. We have our equal employment opportunity, where government agencies are encouraged to allow all to prevent discrimination, any type of discrimination in the workforce, by allowing opportunity, equal opportunity for all types of gender. Also, we have our our Magna Carta for Teachers, no? Which reiterates this policy on anti-discrimination against women. We have even criminalized, no, discrimination against the women, no, the anti-violence against women, no. So all these policies have, I think, have greatly contributed and supported, no, women in terms of giving them opportunity, and at the same time uh, uh, supporting them, no, um, in what you said earlier, that um, uh, honing their skills, and at what do you call, you said a very good statement a while ago, no, I forgot, but it's actually giving them um, the opportunity that they deserve. So there are a lot of policies, no, that are being implemented, no, by our national government, and I think, no, all of us, no, are now aware, no, of these policies.
Thank you very much, Director Miguel, for letting us know about the existing policies that support equal gender rights. With that, may we please hear from Ms. Graham?
And yeah, just adding on to Anne, I think education is really crucial to improving the outcomes and equality for women and girls. I think it's one of the key levers that we have to advance equality, and it's a really important factor. I think, you know, in my situation, I was the first in my family to go to university and get a university degree. And by doing so, it meant that my options and my opportunities were a lot more higher than what I would have had if I hadn't gone to university, and I had a lot more opportunities, and it meant that other members of my family could see that it was a good approach to go. And you know, and it means also that it gives you a better situation to address some of the barriers in the workplace. Unfortunately, you see a bit of a statistic where even though women are leaving tertiary education and probably getting a lot more qualifications than male counterparts, the qualifications that they do get in tertiary education, well, particularly in New Zealand anyway, are still in the social sector areas, and not in the high performing or high wage growth industries like technology. So we've got a bit of work to do to encourage women and girls, or to provide them with more choices so that they can do a broader range of qualifications in education, and particularly in areas where it has a lot of growth. As I mentioned before, particularly worrying about the impacts of COVID on education for girls, particularly in our regions or economies who are developing, and where education is seen to be kind of a crucial element for growth in their areas. And hopefully that we can all work to help our colleagues in those economies too.
Thank you, Ms. Graham. I agree with you with what you said about providing women with more choices. And in addition to that, I think aside from giving women a wide array of choices, I think perhaps in terms of career or in whatever path that they choose to take in terms of employment, I think we should also need to build a culture wherein when women take a certain path that is not usually common for pardon for the term, common for them to take on, they shouldn't receive, frowns from other people, or this shouldn't be questioned. I think we should normalize women taking up spaces in careers that, usually weren't perceived to be meant for them. And this is something that we should start in our classrooms, right? As young as our learners are, we should already be teaching them the value of recognizing a person's potential regardless of their gender. So with that, let's now move on to our next question. I think for this time, Ms. Graham should go first. Why is it important to take gender concerns into account in program design and implementation?
Thanks, Hannah. A hard one, probably also common sense, but a lot of research behind it. I think, when you look at the research around decision making, it does show that if women are on boards or in decision making situations, that they can better represent the needs and the diversity, and so the whole board or our workplace makes better decisions or better informed decisions, particularly so. Women can, I think I have read research that women are more collective in their decision making responses and more informative. And when you see sort of the research about the impacts on COVID, that women leading the countries where women are leading that response actually have better outcomes in the delivery of those products. So I think that the better decision making and the better being able to represent the views of women who at the end of the day will be buying products or benefiting from the services that are being provided in that way.
Is it okay if I pose a follow-up question, Ms. Graham?
Sure.
Do you think there are any instances wherein taking into account gender concerns in program design and implementation becomes difficult? Are there any external factors at play?
Well, I think that the research shows that actually to make a difference, you need at least 3 women on board. So having just one person, one woman who's kind of token, actually is negative and doesn't make a difference at all. So you actually need more than one woman on board to actually make a difference.
Thank you, Ms. Graham. Again, taking up space, and it should be a deliberate effort indeed. Perhaps you can now hear from Director Miguel.
Yes, thank you, Hannah. That's a very good question. I think we really need to consider women in the design of our programs, because the needs of women are different from uh, from men, no? Precisely because, well, number one, women give birth. And say, for example, in a certain workplace, we need to consider certain support mechanisms, infrastructure, perhaps, no, to establish certain infrastructures to cater to the needs of our women. Say, for example, a workplace should have a breastfeeding station or a childcare center. And this has been institutionalized. There is a law providing uh, providing for this one, and also women also, when they give birth, they need to recuperate, they need to rest. So in our work setup, no, in our work arrangement, there should also be an opportunity for women to take a leave of absence. That's why they're given an expanded leave of absence, no, and this has been approved already, no. It has become a law, an expanded maternity leave of absence. So I think for women to be able to do its responsibility as a mother, uh, support mechanism should be given by the employer, no. and by the government or by the government agency. So in our program design, there's really a need to um, to take into consideration the needs of women, precisely because they have unique needs.
Thank you, Director Miguel. I think what you said about the current programs that are being implemented, um, it's it's important that our policies reflect the real needs of women. You know, the reality that women face every day. We should be able to give them access to the support and the needs that they have to acquire as women. And in pointing out that women have different needs than men, we should keep in mind that it's not such a bad thing to recognize the differences. Actually, it's something that we should um, recognize and celebrate, and it is not something that we should view in the light of bias and stereotype. So with that, I would like to thank you once again, Director Miguel and Ms. Graham, for giving us a very informative and dynamic discussion. It has been an honor to share the virtual floor with you. I am now returning. Before I leave the podium, let us give once again a round of applause to our two speakers. And with that, I am now returning the floor to our hosts.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hannah. Now to express the gratitude and appreciation of the Department of Education ICO, let us award these certificates to our distinguished speakers.
So let me read the citation. All right. So the Department of Education and the Department of Education International Cooperation Office awards this certificate of appreciation to Attorney Anne Rachel C. Miguel for sharing her invaluable expertise as resource speaker during the 2022 International Women's Day, Gender Equality Today for a Sustainable Tomorrow, via Zoom video conferencing and Facebook Live, given this 8th day of March 2022, signed Margarita Consolacion C. Ballesteros, Director for International Cooperation Office. Let's give her a round of applause, please. The same certificate is hereby awarded to Ms. Renee Graham for sharing, again, let me just read it again, for sharing her invaluable expertise as resource speaker during the 2022 International Women's Day, Gender Equality Today for a Sustainable Future, via Zoom video conferencing and Facebook Live, given this 8th day of March 2022, signed Margarita Consolacion C. Ballesteros, Director for International Cooperation Office. A round of applause, please. So, at this point, may we invite our speakers to open their camera for a quick photo opportunity. So, technical team, are we ready for the photo op? All right. So, at my count, 1, 2, 3. All right, one more time. All right, so 1, 2, 3. All right, are we good? One more time. So please flash your best smile. 1, 2, 3. Please open your camera. Maybe just remind everyone to please open their camera, especially our speakers. All right. Are we good? Okay, we're good. All right. So, once again, thank you very much.
And for this year's celebration of the International Women's Day, the Philippine Commission on Women created these advocacy videos in order to give off positive messages on gender equality and women's empowerment. To learn more from these advocacy videos, let us all watch this.
Maestra sa Mambusaw National High School, Probinsya San Capiz. Bilang Juana, ito ang say ko. Ang pagmaestra nagakinahanglan gid sang mahaba nga pasensya. Hantop nga serbisyo ag dedikasyon nga halin sa tagipusoon. Amo nga nagakinahanglan man ini sang nagakaigo nga sweldo para mas mapasanyog pagid ang pagserbisyo. Kinahanglanon man ang padayon nga paghasa sa mga manunudlo para maging aktibo ag up-to-date ang pagtao at kinaalam sa mga kabataan. Dapat nga makaangkon man ang mga manunudlo sang materyales, kapareho sang laptop, printer, kupon, kagiban pa, para mapahapos ang pagdulong sang maayo kag nagakaigo nga serbisyo. Sa sininga pamaagi, malapit maangkon sang manunudlo ang handom nga pagpabalon sang kinaalam sa tanan nga kabataan. Maaari niyo bang dinggin ang agenda ko?
Samputon usa ka mag-uuma sa Sagbayan Bohol. Isip usa ka Juana mao ni ang akong ikasulti. Ngaunta kami mahatagan sa among mga panginahanglan sa pag-uma sama sa libreng abono, dagkong mga ekwipo ug mga ayuda labi na nga kami nagian sa bagyong Odette. Sa laing bahin unta kami nga mga kababaihan diri sa among lugar mahatagan og livelihood project aron nga naa kami pampuno sa adlaw-adlaw nga namong panginahanglan. Among tawag sa mga kandidato nga unta kining among mga yango mahatagan og pagtagad aron makuhaan ang kalisod sa mga mag-uuma. Himo ba ninyo kining i-apil sa inyong agenda?
Senior naggalang isang manggagawa bilang Juana, ito ang say ko. Sana lahat ng manggagawa sa Metro Manila ay makatanggap ng minimum wage. Ikaw man ay nasa Metro Manila at probinsya. At matapos ang kontraktualisasyon para magkaroon ng seguridad sa trabaho, lalong-lalo na sa benepisyo sa SSS at PhilHealth at magamit ang mga benepisyong ito sa pribado o pampublikong hospital. Maaari ninyo bang dinggin ang agenda ko?
si Rika Aquino, isang professional boxer, sports host at content creator sa Baby Dynamite Sports. Bilang Juana, ito ang say ko. Nais ko magkaroon ng mas maraming oportunidad ang mga kababaihan sa mga posisyon ng pamumuno sa mga sports organization at team. Nais ko din na magkaroon ng inisyatiba, pamamaraan, at implementasyon upang ma-facilitate ang safe spaces sa sports para maproteksyonan ang kababaihan sa anumang uri ng harassment at pang-aabuso. Maari ninyo bang dinggin ang agenda ko?
Hi! Ako si Gracia Ruta Dahar, isang ICU nurse sa Lung Center of the Philippines. Bilang Juana, ito ang say ko. The high turnover of Filipino nurses is a long-pressing problem, and we cannot deny the immense contribution of the Filipino nurses in healthcare, especially during this pandemic. I think actions at a national level should be taken immediately in mitigating this high turnover of nurses. Now is the right time to invest in your nurses. Pass the new Philippine Nursing Practice Act to ensure budget allocation for them. Give them a just salary and remuneration. And more funds are needed for nurses training and research. Also, help in promoting a positive practice environment for them. This can entice nurses to stay. Remember that investing in nurses is investing in the sustainability of the Philippine healthcare system. Maari ninyo bang dinggin ang agenda ko?
Leonardo Paula Matol, isang freelancer, babae at miyembro ng LGBTQIA+ community. Bilang Juana, ito ang say ko. Panawagan namin sa mga lawmakers na isulong at isabatas ang mga pulisiya tulad ng SOGIDO na nagproprotekta sa mga Pilipino mula sa gender-based discrimination. Ang inyong pagsuporta sa mga pulisiyang ito ay makakatulong upang magkaroon ng pantay-pantay na oportunidad at karapatan di lang sa trabaho kundi sa iba't ibang sektor. Maaari niyo bang idagdag ito sa inyong agenda?
Hindi sa pinagmulan. Hindi sa katangiang pisikal. Hindi sa pananamit. Hindi sa uri ng trabaho. Hindi sa desisyon sa buhay. Nasusukat ang dignidad at halaga ng kababaihan. Dahil basta babae, mahusay, maabilidad, matapang. matatag, maaasahan, mapagmahal. Kaya Juana, magtiwala sa sarili, manindigan sa iyong karapatan, at tahakin ang nais mong daan. Dahil malaya ka na maging ikaw. Pagpupugay sa lahat ng mga dakilang Juana. Juana, laban sa pandemya. Kaya!
Before we officially end our program, let us acknowledge the presence of our distinguished guests. So we have the Embassy of the Socialist Republic of Vietnam, the Embassy of the Republic of Indonesia, the Royal Thai Embassy, the Philippine Commission on Women, and we have here Dr. Sandra Montano. Let's give her a round of applause, please. Thank you, ma'am, for gracing us this event today. And we also have the United Nations Association of the Philippines, the National Commission on Indigenous People, the UN Women Regional Office for Asia Pacific, and the APEC HRDWG Education Network. All right, so let's have another photo opportunity right now. So may we invite everyone, especially the ones in Zoom, to please open your camera. I shall give the signal. So just be ready with your beautiful smile. All right? At the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. All right. Are we good or do we need another one? Okay, we'll have another one. So again, at my count, 1, 2, 3. And another one. 1, 2, 3. All right, so tech team, are we good? Okay, so we're good. Thank you very much. All right, so at this point, may we call on Dr. Sandra Montano to give us a message. All right, so let's give her a round of applause, please.
Thank you so much. Good morning to all of you. Our participants from a different embassy, our regional offices of the Department of Education. Good morning po to all of you. This is Sandy Sanchez Montano, the chairperson of the Philippine Commission on Women. I'm so happy to be joining you here today in spite of the very busy schedule of the Commission and at the same time, in spite of the traffic. Nagbalik na po kasi yung traffic po sa ating ngayon, sa ating biyahe. So I came all the way from Bureau of Jail Management and Penology. We had kick-off launching and this is my 8th event. Why 8? Because 6 via Zoom, virtual greetings, and 2 physical. And from here, I'll be going to PCW in Malacanang. So I'm so grateful. I'm so happy to seeing all of you here physically face-to-face. And I couldn't say no to a very good friend. Time and immemorial, we've been good friends. Dr. March Ballesteros, the director for ICO. Palakpakan po natin siya. So in PCW, we say good morning because we say it's gender and development, and greetings to all of you on gender equality and women's empowerment. This month of March, especially today, March 8, we are celebrating the International Day of Women's Month. Women's Day. Sa Pilipinas, we celebrate it one whole month. Ganun po tayo ka-passionate. In the Philippine Commission on Women, we enjoin everyone to join us in honoring all Juanas as we celebrate the 2022 National Women's Month. So if you can see, I'm wearing the official uniform, the official t-shirt of Juana. Okay? Ano po bang ating theme? For 6 years now, the theme is We Make Change Work for Women. And in line with the sub-theme, agenda ng kababaihan tungo sa kaunlaran. We highlight that by addressing women's concern and issues, sustainable and inclusive development can be achieved, especially here in the Department of Education. We want to enable more women to demand more programs and services, especially the young girls. For the education sector, we would like to appeal to Secretary of the Department of Education, Ma'am Liling Briones, to send us your representative every time we have a board meeting, and also please play an active role, especially now we have an initiative to do with DepEd, CHED, and TESDA on setting up the technical working group on the curriculum. There should be a gender mainstreaming in the curriculum, especially that formative years of the young girls and boys happen in Department of Education. Significant issues has raised for this event that we have right now. And one of them is the climate change, disaster risk reduction and mitigation, which is also the focus of the United Nations Commission CSW 66. We are urging everyone to understand the impact of education, especially in the climate change, risk reduction. And as we observe the National Women's Month, let us honor all Juanas by promoting their welfare, especially sa ating mga teachers, sa ating mga backliners. Actually, few months from now, we'll be going to have the election, and we know the teachers, ang ating mga empowered Juana, ang mangunguna pong muli para sa halalan na magaganap. So, today is Tuesday. Anong tawag po natin dito? Hashtag Purple Tuesday. So, I'm so happy to be, you are all on your Tuesday. Okay, purple mask, purple blouse, purple t-shirt, purple shoes, purple balloons, or all purple. Especially it's Women's Month. You can also change your profile picture. If you can download the app, there is TikTok, there is profile picture, there is hashtag Wanna Says. Ang daming pakulo ng PCW. And kung every November, which is the 18-day campaign, we say orange your icon. This time, I would like to encourage everyone to purple your icon. So kung may ilaw po kayo sa bahay o kaya yung mga LED light nyo, it should be purple. And then this afternoon, around 1 o'clock, we're going to have the kick-off launching in PCW in Malacanang, wherein we're going to start the online pool, okay? We know that when we talk about Juana, when we talk about agenda ng kababaihan, we want to listen from you. We want to ask the Department of Education, the teachers, the backliners, the support staff, what agenda, anong agenda ang gusto nyong isulong para sa ating kababaihan, para sa ating mga guro, para sa ating mga estudyante. Let's talk. Nandito po ako. I'm just a text away through Dr. March Ballesteros. Siya po yung pinakamalapit sa akin, sa totoo lang. Hindi po ako nakakatulog hanggat hindi ko sinasagot ang mga messages ni Dr. Marge. Kaya palakpakan po natin si Dr. Marge. Kanina po, kailangan kong umalis kaagad sa BGMP para makarating dito. Kaya sabi ko, napakabait din ng mga security guard. Ayaw akong papasukin. Sabi ko, maglalakad na lang ako, bawal din daw. Tapos pumasok kami sa isang gate. Ayaw naman papasukin yung sasakyan. O, dinaglakad din ang chairperson. Di bale? Bata pa naman tayo at saka exercise ay maganda sa katawan, di ba? So, we are all part of this advocacy. We would like a whole of nation approach this time. All the policy, all the agenda that you would like me to listen, to hear, para maipropose po natin sa Women Priority Legislative Agenda coming the opening of the Congress. So please, write all those agenda that you would like us to do, and let us stay put. And I urge all the government agency, private sector, civil society organization, especially the academe, DepEd, the local government unit from provinces to barangay, and every person that can help address the continuing and emerging issues that hamper women's empowerment and gender equality. Therefore, we must work in solidarity towards the closure of the gender gap that to date no country has yet to achieve, even in the Philippines. Out of 158 countries po, number 17 ang Philippines. Number 1 po tayo sa Asia when it comes to gender equality. So palakpakan po natin. But we still have a lot of work to do. The National Women's Month celebration is the venue for us to solidify our commitment and rally behind every Juana who aspires for gender equality. We all have a role to play. Stand up for your rights, break the barriers, be pioneers of change, and empower each Juana and make sure that discrimination is eradicated. If I may appeal sa ating mga guro, sa ating mga kalalakihan, dito sa DepEd, men, can you help by challenging stereotype and that traditional macho culture, enjoying more wants to practice positive instead of toxic masculinity? Dati sasabihin nila, ako ang haligi ng tahanan, ako ang boss dito, kaya ako ay maglalaba, magpaplantsa, maglilinis, mag-change ng diaper dahil ngayon ay buwan ng kababaihan. So, we always encourage the men to share the load. Share the load, di ba? Para naman ma-relax ang ating mga Juana. And I would also like to appeal to you, if you can please start MOVE chapter in DepEd. What is MOVE? Men Oppose Violence Everywhere. And we have started already 911 emergency hotline that is included in the emergency hotline sa ating 911. Kung dati po, okay, if there are 5 cases na nirirespondihan ng 911, which is bombing, terrorism, fire, earthquake, disaster, or any calamities, and physical or human emergency, number 6 na po ngayon, narirespondihan po natin ng 911 ang gender-based violence at violence against women and children. So, yan po ang initiative ng ating gobyerno para po sa ating mga, what we call the silent pandemic or the shadow pandemic. Because sometimes if you are if you have VOWSY, they will not talk. They will just be silent, and at the same time, they will just cry. That's why there's 911. Kung nahihiya po kayong pumunta sa barangay or kaya sa police station, you can call right away 911. Okay? This is my address to LGBTQIA community, sa ating mga mahal na mga LGBTQIA+. You are propellers and key movers of this advocacy towards gender equality. And may we ask all the organizations that we count on you, the Philippine Commission on Women, count on your concrete programs, policies, and services that will help turn the wheel on gender equality and women empowerment. The Philippine Commission on Women thanks all of you, especially DepEd, in this advocacy, and we encourage everyone to continue building on the gains achieved and move further towards gender equality. This is the last year that the theme, We Make Change Work for Women, we will be celebrating. May I ask every one of you, have we made change? May change na po ba tayong ginawa, lalo na sa ating departamento sa DepEd? Okay, so lastly, to all Juanas out there, this celebration is a reminder that you are strong, you are magnificent, you are beautiful in all ways. You are exemplary, you are diligent, you are brilliant, compassionate and passionate, you are so innovative. And most especially, you are so resilient. I always say that women are powerful beyond measure and beautiful beyond pressure. For being pillars, trailblazers, and change makers in the family, in the work that you have, in the community, and in our country. We honor and we celebrate with you. Mahal na mahal po namin kayong lahat, mga Juana. So, on behalf of the Philippine Commission on Women, this is your chairperson, Sandy Montano, saying, God Day po sa ating lahat.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sandy Montano. God day to you din po. And I believe though that women could actually lead. Hashtag natin yan na women can lead. Okay, so at this point, to formally close our program, let us all hear from the Regional Director of the National Capital Region and currently the officer in charge of the Office of the Undersecretary of Human Resource and Organizational Development of the Department of Education, Undersecretary Wilfredo E. Cabral.
To the resource persons, distinguished guests, participants to this webinar, ladies and gentlemen, my warmest greetings to all as we celebrate International Women's Day. We commemorate the International Women's Day as we reflect and call to promote women empowerment and to celebrate acts of courage and determination of women from all facets and sectors of the society. In a world where we still witness challenges hindering women empowerment, we must take proactive action in a call for change. We must also further recognize women's capabilities and strength as leaders in our respective communities and how they are an integral part of building a more sustainable future for all. In this meaningful day, I commend the hard work of women in every field. I believe that women's strength, resiliency, and optimism are the best qualities to emulate in facing today's global challenges, a fact echoed in the significant contributions of women as leaders in the respective communities they are representing. Truly, our women leaders, whose leadership is anchored in courage and compassion, make our world a better place for the coexistence of humankind. With this, it is important to be steadfast in the call to action for individuals, communities, and organizations to hasten efforts on addressing issues affecting women, such as forms of gender stereotypes and inequality, highlighting the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women is also a way of generating public awareness on women's critical role in the society. Let us continue encouraging women to participate in addressing challenges of our time as we strive to make a difference in the world we live in and push for the realization of women's aspirations without limits. Again, special and meaningful International Women's Day to all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Undersecretary Cabral. So now, speaking of women leaders, at this point, we would like to call on another amazing woman leader. It's none other than the Director of the International Cooperation Office, our Director, Dr. Margarita Consolacion Casabar Ballesteros. Director?
Thank you, Mabby and Ryan. Again, good morning to our colleagues who are on Zoom watching us or joining us via Zoom. Good evening to those who are in New Zealand, in New York, and of course, good noon to those who are in Australia and still very early in Switzerland, but they have tuned in to watch and join us. These are Filipino friends and our friends from the different economies as well. Let me take this opportunity to thank our sponsors in this morning's event, aside from those who are here with us in the Bulwagan ng Karunungan. And first, of course, is our chair from the Philippine Commission on Women, Dr. Sandra, or we call her Sandy Montano. Thank you, Chair, for joining us. And also our colleagues from the Department of Education, especially from Region 11, Region 6, Region 7, Region 1, Region 2. Special mention to the Schools Division Offices of Copies, of Maasin, together with their superintendents and assistant superintendents. Of course, SDO Antipolo, SDO Lawag, SDO Ilocos Sur, SDO Kabangkalan, and SDO Pasig. We thank as well our friends and supporters, the lady supporters, I call them, from the APEC office or the IA's office in South Korea, Ms. Soo-yeon Kim, and together with Myung-sun and their team. Kamsamida, thank you for joining us, as well as our private schools, especially St. Patrick College of Quezon City, La Consolacion College, and my alma mater, St. Paul College. Our friends and colleagues from TESDA, from CHED, especially the Philippine Normal University and Tarlac State University, who joined us as well this morning. And of course, not to forget the team behind the scenes. We have the International Cooperation Office personnel, as well, of course, our colleagues and friends from the Public Affairs Office and ICTS, and from the admin office as well, and from the different offices, from the office of the secretary, the undersecretaries, and assistant secretaries. Maraming salamat po at mapagpalang araw ng mga kababaihan sa mundo at sa Pilipinas. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Director Ballesteros. We would also like to thank Jollibee and McDonald's for our snacks today. All right, so again, thank you everyone. So to those who are watching on their homes, to all our teachers and students, to all the strong and beautiful women. I am Mary Beth Chua.
And I am Ryan Ray Limos. See you all again to our next activities.
Happy International Women's Day. Just a reminder for those who are on Facebook, on Zoom also, may we remind you to please fill out the evaluation form posted on the ICO Facebook page. Thank you.
Na-flick eh.